If we truly believe in democracy, if we truly believe in equal representation, and if we truly believe in the equality of all people, the resolution before us today will surely pass, and it's on this basis that we are so proud to propose. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, fellow opponents and worthy guests. We're here today to address the resolution that reads, "This House would reserve seats in the legislature for representatives of major national labor unions," and we're going to be presenting to you 3 points on why we believe this resolution must and will stand. Before I get into that, I'd like to go over a few key terms and definitions in today's resolution. We would define this House as Canada and legislature as the House of Commons, and representatives of major national labor unions as simple only part of the public center. We would model this debate so that 10% of the seats would be awarded to these representatives of major national labor unions, and the amount of seats a labor union receives would be based on the proportions in consideration to the amount of workers that they represent. So, our 3 points today on side proposition are going to firstly be about the need for this resolution, secondly about perspective, and my partner Ashley will later on be talking to you about how this is going to create a catalyst for change. Now, our burden today on side proposition is to prove to you that it is justifiable to award these people seats in the House of Commons, and secondly, how this is actually going to benefit the greater good. Let's get into our first point about the need for this resolution. We would tell you that currently labor unions are underrepresented on the greater scale and on policies that directly affect their workplace. We think that people are uninformed about the needs of these labor unions simply because the government doesn't recognize the extent to which these labor unions expand. These workers make up the foundation of our society. They are the doctors who make us better. They are the teachers who teach our future. They are the construction workers that build our house. We think that if the government is going to be making policies that directly affect them and ultimately directly affect us, it's our responsibility to allow them to be heard in these national level legislatures. We think that the government is going to be deciding policies that these companies are ultimately able to make, and the government doesn't fully recognize that the majority of the people the people of our society are these workers. No, thank you. We would tell you that furthermore, the House of Commons policies don't only affect these major labor unions, but rather all labor unions, including those small ones who are unable to actually make change. At the moment, we would tell you that change is only happening on a small scale, and the rights of smaller labor unions aren't creating influence. We need someone who advocates for the rights of those that aren't heard. So let's take a look at our second point about this idea of perspective and how by the implementation of this resolution, we're going to create a government that, with more perspective, but first we want.
Min, can you please explain to me, if I'm a member of the teacher labor union, why I would care about bills about foreign policy and everything that doesn't have to do specifically with teachers?
Okay, so we think that that's not the case. We think that labor unions represent teachers not only in their teaching aspect, but they know what they need. We would tell you that these bills, no matter what, are directly going to affect these teachers. If you create a new law, the teachers are going to have to abide by that law. We still think our point stands. Okay, so let's get back into this point about this idea of perspective. So we would tell you that the current members of the House of Commons, they aren't most likely going to have experience or expertise needed in this area. We would tell you, no thank you, they aren't going to make choices completely based off of the needs of these labor union workers. And we would tell you that we need to take steps, that it's the role of the government to promote rights, no thank you, and equal representation and freedoms of our workers. We think that already on these two sides there's already an intense disparity. We think that we need to equal that out by giving seats to these labor unions. We think that the policies created in the government aren't acknowledged because the members simply don't have the perspective that the union workers have. They aren't acknowledging that the majority of the population is made up by these union workers. We think that the decisions made in the legislature doesn't affect only one company, it affects every other company. We think we need these major companies representing all the smaller ones who can't actually be heard right now. We would tell you that this works similarly to affirmative action, in that we need to bring up a severely underrepresented group to aim for equality. We would also tell you that these people are ultimately making choices for the greater good, and we would tell you that this is even more representative than what is happening right now, as these are the workers who directly influence our society. As a free and equal democracy, as a group that upholds these rights, and as a group that wants a nation to flourish, we've realized that we have to recognize that these people in fact make up the majority of our society, and there's no better way to represent them than with these seats. So what have we told you today? We firstly told you about the need for this resolution and how these labor unions simply aren't represented right now. And we also told you about how this resolution will bring perspective into the House of Commons that is ultimately going to benefit for the greater good. And my partner Ashley will later on be talking to you about how this creates a catalyst for change. And it's for those reasons that we are so proud to propose.